Billionaire twins marry identical black twins. Years later, they found the horrible truth. At first, their story seemed like a fairy tale. Two powerful brothers, two beautiful twin brides, and two perfect babies born on the same day. But just when everything looked picture perfect, one simple test exposes something impossible. The babies don't match the parents. The hospital can't explain it. And an old whisper from the past points to a secret so dark, no one is ready to face it, because one of the brides may not be a twin at all, and her entire life might be built on a lie. Now 2 families are falling apart, marriages are cracking, and every truth they ever believed is slipping away. If the truth can destroy everything they love, what happens when they finally uncover who she really is? Tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now, and if this story speaks to you, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. The crisp Atlanta morning sun painted golden streaks across the polished glass towers of downtown. Inside one of the city's most prestigious buildings, Colton Vale adjusted his blue silk tie for the 10th time, his reflection wavering in the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse office suite. "Would you stop fidgeting?" Carter Vale said with a laugh, reaching over to straighten his twin brother's tie himself. "You'd think we'd never done a TV interview before." "I just want everything to be perfect," Colton replied, his voice soft but determined. "This foundation means too much to mess up." The brothers stood side by side, their matching dark suits and carefully styled hair making them look even more identical than usual. But those who knew them well could spot the differences. Carter's easy smile and relaxed stance contrasted with Colton's thoughtful expression and measured movements. "The Vale Foundation's work speaks for itself," Carter said, clapping his brother on the shoulder. "Just be yourself. That's what people connect with." The morning passed in a blur of camera lights and carefully worded answers about their tech company's latest initiatives to bring coding education to underserved communities. By early afternoon, both brothers felt drained but satisfied as they headed to their next commitment, a charity banquet supporting youth programs in Atlanta's southwest side. The elegant ballroom of the Renaissance Hotel was alive with activity as volunteers and staff prepared for the evening ahead. As Colton and Carter entered through the service entrance to avoid attention, they were immediately struck by the warm, welcoming atmosphere despite the pre-event rush. That's when they saw them. 2 young women directing the catering setup with natural authority and grace. The sisters were clearly twins themselves, their matching height and bearing obvious even as their personalities showed through in different ways. One sister gestured animatedly as she explained, something to a volunteer, her voice carrying across the room with confidence. The other moved more quietly between tables, stopping to adjust place settings with careful attention to detail. "Wow," Carter whispered, his eyes following the more outspoken sister. "Who is that?" Before Colton could answer, the quieter sister looked up and met his gaze. Her warm brown eyes widened slightly in recognition, but instead of the usual star-struck reaction the brothers often received, she simply offered a small, genuine smile that made Colton's heart skip a beat. "Excuse me?" a firm voice called out, and they turned to find the more outspoken sister approaching them. "I'm Natalie James, and you're early. The banquet doesn't start for another 2 hours." "Carter Vale," Carter replied, with his most charming smile, extending his hand. "And this is my brother Colton. We always like to arrive early to help where we can." Natalie's expression softened slightly, though she maintained her professional demeanor. "Well, in that case, you can make yourselves useful. Nyla, can you show them where the extra chairs need to go?" The quieter sister, Nyla, nodded and walked over. Up close, Colton noticed the gentle confidence in her movements, so different from her sister's bold energy, but equally compelling. "This way," she said softly, leading them toward a storage area. "We're setting up a youth presentation area in the corner. The kids have worked really hard on their speeches." As they carried chairs together, conversation flowed naturally. They learned that Nyla was a children's counselor and Natalie a civil rights attorney. The sisters had started a community empowerment project that included catering services to provide job training for local youth. "It's not billions of dollars," Natalie said with a slight edge as they worked, "but it makes a real difference in people's lives." "That's exactly what matters," Colton replied earnestly. "The size of the impact isn't as important as the heart behind it." Carter nodded in agreement, his eyes rarely leaving Natalie's face. "We'd love to hear more about your program. Maybe we could collaborate somehow." The afternoon passed quickly as they worked together, sharing stories and discovering surprising connections. Nyla's quiet wisdom drew Colton in, while Carter and Natalie sparked off each other with quick wit and passionate debates about social justice. As the banquet began, the brothers found themselves stationed near the catering area, stealing glances at the James sisters throughout the evening. The formal event seemed to fade into the background as they shared warm looks and brief conversations whenever the sisters passed by. When the night finally wound down, Colton and Carter insisted on helping carry supplies to the sisters' car. Under the soft glow of the parking lot lights, they lingered, none of them quite ready to end the evening. "We should exchange numbers," Carter suggested, trying to sound casual. For potential collaboration opportunities." Natalie raised an eyebrow, but couldn't hide her smile as she pulled out her phone. "Purely professional, of course." "Of course," Carter agreed with a grin. Colton and Nyla exchanged numbers more quietly, their fingers brushing as they handed phones back and forth. The touch sent a current of electricity through them both. Later that night, the Vale twins stood on their penthouse balcony, the Atlanta skyline twinkling before them like earthbound stars. "That was something else," Carter said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Meeting another set of twins who just get it, who understand what it means to always have someone in your corner." Colton nodded, his thoughts still with Nyla's gentle smile. "It felt like fate," Carter finished, turning to look at his brother with understanding in his eyes. "Yeah," Colton agreed softly. "Exactly like fate." They stood there a while longer, each lost in thoughts of the remarkable women they'd met, both sensing that this day marked the beginning of something extraordinary. The autumn night wrapped around them like a promise, carrying whispers of possibilities neither brother had dared to dream of before. The morning sun cast a warm glow over Atlanta as Carter paced in his penthouse living room, phone in hand. He'd typed and deleted the same message to Natalie at least 5 times. "Just send it already," Colton said from the couch, though his own phone showed a blank message screen to Nyla. Carter ran a hand through his dark hair. "It needs to be perfect. Casual but interested. Professional but... How's this?" Colton held up his phone. "Hey Nyla, Carter and I really enjoyed meeting you and Natalie yesterday. Would you both like to join us for lunch at the Garden Cafe near Centennial Park?" "That's actually perfect," Carter admitted, grinning at his twin. "Simple and straightforward." They sent their messages and tried not to stare at their phones. When both sisters responded within minutes accepting the invitation, the brothers shared matching smiles of relief. The Garden Cafe sat in a historic brick building with climbing ivy and window boxes full of bright flowers. The brothers arrived early, securing a table on the covered patio where sunlight filtered through canvas awnings. When Nyla and Natalie arrived, both brothers stood. Carter noticed how Natalie's confident stride matched her crisp blazer and jeans, while Nyla's flowing sundress suited her gentle presence. I hope you don't mind eating outside, Colton said as they settled in. It's such a beautiful day. It's perfect, Nyla replied softly, her eyes taking in the colorful flowers surrounding them. Over chicken salad sandwiches and glasses of sweet tea garnished with fresh mint, conversation flowed easily. Natalie spoke passionately about her latest civil rights case, defending a group of minority-owned businesses facing discriminatory lending practices. The evidence is clear as day, she said, gesturing with her sandwich, but the system is designed to wear down anyone who challenges it. Still, seeing my clients' faces when we win makes it all worth it. Carter leaned forward, captivated by her fire. That's incredible work you're doing. Have you considered partnering with larger advocacy groups? While they discussed legal strategy, Colton and Nyla shared quieter observations about their own work. Children are so resilient, Nyla said, stirring her tea thoughtfully. But they need someone to believe in them, to really see them. Sometimes all it takes is one person showing them they matter. Colton nodded, understanding in his eyes. That's what drew me to educational technology, creating tools that help kids learn in their own way, at their own pace. Every child deserves that chance. After lunch, they walked through Centennial Park, the autumn breeze carrying the scent of fallen leaves. Carter and Natalie walked ahead, their animated discussion punctuated by bursts of laughter. Look at them, Nyla said softly to Colton. They're like matching firecrackers. Colton chuckled. While we're more like still water, Nyla suggested with a smile. Exactly, he agreed, feeling understood in a way that both surprised and delighted him. They stopped to watch children playing by the fountains, their joy echoing across the park. When a little girl waved at them, both Colton and Nyla waved back automatically, then shared a warm look at their synchronized response. As weeks passed, their relationships deepened naturally. The brothers joined the sisters at their church, impressed by the tight-knit community and the sisters' involvement in youth programs. Family dinners became a regular occurrence, with Evelyn Vale immediately taking both sisters under her wing. You've brought such light into this house, Evelyn told them one Sunday after church, her eyes misty as she watched her sons laughing with the women they were growing to love. Date nights multiplied, Carter and Natalie attending civil rights fundraisers, while Colton and Nyla explored quiet gardens and art galleries. They discovered favorite restaurants, inside jokes, and the countless small ways their lives fit together perfectly. One evening in late October, during a double date at the Botanical Gardens, Carter watched Natalie explaining constitutional law to a fascinated teenage tour guide. She's something else, he said quietly to his brother. Colton nodded, his eyes on Nyla as she knelt to help a little boy who'd dropped his toy. They both are. As autumn turned to winter, the Vale family Christmas gala approached. The elegant annual event filled their mansion with Atlanta's elite, raising millions for children's charities. The night of the gala, soft snow fell outside while inside, crystal chandeliers cast a magical glow over everything. Natalie wore a deep red gown that made her look like a queen, while Nyla floated through the crowd in silvery blue silk. Carter stood at the top of the grand staircase, watching Natalie charm a group of potential donors. Her intelligence and passion had them reaching for their checkbooks while hanging on her every word. In that moment, seeing her advocacy for others in action, he knew with absolute certainty that he wanted to spend his life with her. Across the ballroom, Colton found a quiet moment with Nyla in the conservatory. She was telling him about a breakthrough with one of her young clients, her face glowing with joy at the child's progress. As she spoke, snowflakes danced outside the glass walls, and Colton felt his heart swell with the recognition that she was meant to be his wife. The gala continued around them, but for both Vale brothers everything had shifted. What had begun with a chance meeting at a charity banquet had grown into something profound and true. As they moved through the evening's festivities, each brother held close the secret knowledge that they had found the woman they wanted to marry. Evelyn watched her sons that night, noting the way they looked at the James sisters, and sent up a quiet prayer of thanksgiving. After all these years, her boys had finally found their perfect matches, women who complemented their strengths and understood their hearts. The snow continued to fall outside, transforming Atlanta into a winter wonderland, while inside the mansion, love bloomed as bright and warm as the thousands of twinkling lights that illuminated the celebration. The morning sun streamed through Evelyn Vale's kitchen windows, casting a warm glow over the breakfast table where her twin sons sat nursing cups of coffee. The Christmas gala's decorations still sparkled throughout the house, but the brothers' minds were clearly elsewhere. "Mom," Carter began, setting down his cup, "I need to tell you something." Before he could continue, Colton spoke up. "Actually, I have news too." Evelyn looked between her sons, a knowing smile playing at her lips as she set a plate of fresh scones on the table. "Well, don't keep me in suspense." The brothers exchanged glances, then spoke almost simultaneously. "I'm going to propose to Natalie. I want to marry Nyla." Evelyn's hands flew to her heart as happy tears welled in her eyes. "My boys," she whispered, pulling them both into a tight embrace. "I've been praying for this day." Over the next hour, they shared their proposal plans. Colton described the private garden he'd reserved at the Botanical Gardens, where he and Nyla had shared so many meaningful conversations. "I want it to be intimate, just us among the flowers she loves so much." Carter's plans were characteristically bold. "The rooftop of our first office building at sunset. I've already arranged for a string quartet and her favorite chef to cater dinner." Their mother listened, offering suggestions and sharing family stories. "Your father proposed to me in our church garden," she recalled softly. "Sometimes the simplest moments become our most precious memories." The following week passed in a blur of secret preparations. Colton worked with the Botanical Garden staff to transform their most beautiful space into an enchanted evening setting. Hundreds of tiny lights were strung through the trees, and masses of Nyla's favorite flowers created intimate pathways leading to a central fountain. The night of his proposal, Colton led Nyla through the garden, his heart pounding as she gasped at the magical scene. "This is beautiful," she breathed, squeezing his hand. Near the fountain, Colton turned to face her. "Nyla James," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "You've shown me what true grace looks like. Your gentle strength and limitless compassion make me want to be a better man every day." He dropped to one knee, producing a ring that caught the twinkling lights. "Will you marry me?" Tears spilled down Nyla's cheeks as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes. 2 days later, Carter executed his own proposal with characteristic flair. As the sun began to set, he escorted Natalie to the rooftop, where they'd first discussed their dreams of changing the world. The space had been transformed with flowers, candles, and the soft strains of a string quartet playing her favorite songs. "I had a whole speech prepared," Carter admitted as they stood together looking out over the city. "But looking at you now, all I can say is that I love you, Natalie James. Your fire, your dedication to justice, your incredible heart. You make everything in my life better." He knelt, opening a velvet box to reveal a stunning ring. "Will you marry me?" Natalie's usual eloquence deserted her as happy tears fell. "Yes," she managed, pulling him up into a passionate kiss while the quartet played on. The news of the double engagement spread quickly, capturing national attention. Social media exploded with joy over the heartwarming story of the Billionaire twins finding love with the remarkable James sisters. Their interracial relationships became a symbol of hope and progress, inspiring countless supportive messages from around the world. Wedding planning consumed the next few months. Evelyn and the sisters' mother, Regina, bonded over venue selections and flower arrangements. The brothers insisted on handling all expenses, but both sisters maintained their independence by contributing meaningful elements to the celebrations. They chose a spring wedding date, planning a joint ceremony that would reflect both families' traditions. The Vale Mansion's grounds were transformed into a wedding wonderland, with separate areas for each couple's reception, while maintaining the unified feel of the day. Natalie and Nyla spent countless evenings together, marveling at how their lives had changed. "Remember when we were catering events like this?" Natalie said one night, looking through table-setting options. Neela smiled, touching her engagement ring. "And now we're planning our double wedding. God has blessed us beyond measure." The night before the wedding, a peaceful quiet settled over both families. In her childhood bedroom, Natalie stood at the window, thinking about the journey ahead. Her engagement ring caught the moonlight as she thought about the incredible man she would marry tomorrow. Across the hall, Nyla sat in quiet prayer, grateful for the gentle love she'd found with Colton and the beautiful future they would build together. In their separate rooms at the Vale Mansion, Colton and Carter each reflected on their extraordinary good fortune. Colton thought about the family he and Nyla would create, while Carter imagined the positive change he and Natalie would bring to the world together. In her private sitting room, Evelyn Vale held a framed photo of her sons as young boys, remembering all the prayers she'd said for their future happiness. Tomorrow, her family would grow by 2 daughters, and her heart felt full to bursting with joy. The Atlanta night wrapped around them all like a soft blanket, stars twinkling with promise above the sleeping city. Tomorrow would bring new beginnings, precious vows, and the merger of 2 families into one. For now, they rested in the peace of absolute certainty in their choices and the love they shared. The historic Westview Chapel glowed in the early morning sunlight, its stained glass windows casting rainbow patterns across the gathering crowd. Inside, white roses and delicate baby's breath adorned every pew, their sweet fragrance filling the air. Television cameras positioned discreetly in the corners captured the scene as Atlanta's most anticipated wedding of the year began. The chapel buzzed with excitement as guests found their seats. Evelyn Vale, resplendent in a powder blue suit, dabbed at her eyes even before the ceremony began. Regina James, elegant in deep purple, sat across the aisle, her proud smile lighting up her face. The string quartet began playing softly as the groomsmen took their places. Colton and Carter Vale stood side by side at the altar, both handsome in classic black tuxedos with subtle differences in their boutonnieres, white roses for Colton, pink for Carter. They shared a meaningful glance, remembering their childhood dreams of finding true love. The bridesmaids processed in wearing flowing gowns in soft spring colors. Then the music swelled, and the gathered crowd rose as the chapel doors opened wide. Nyla appeared first, radiant in a classic white gown with delicate lace sleeves. Her father beamed with pride as he escorted her down the aisle. Colton's eyes filled with tears at the sight of his bride, her own eyes sparkling with joy as she walked toward him. Moments later, Natalie emerged, stunning in a modern silk gown with an elegant train. She walked confidently beside her father, her megawatt smile focused entirely on Carter, who couldn't take his eyes off her. The minister welcomed everyone warmly, speaking about the power of love to bridge all differences and bring hearts together. "Today," he said, "we celebrate not just 2 marriages, but the joining of 2 families, 2 cultures, and 2 visions for a better future." Colton and Nyla exchanged vows first. Colton's voice trembled slightly as he spoke. Nyla, your gentle spirit captured my heart from the moment we met. I promise to cherish your kindness, support your dreams, and walk beside you in faith for all our days. Nyla's soft voice carried clearly through the chapel. Colton, you've shown me what true partnership means. I promise to stand with you in all seasons, to nurture our love, and to build a family filled with joy and purpose. Carter and Natalie followed, their vows reflecting their passionate personalities. Carter spoke with characteristic charm, but unusual vulnerability. Natalie, your fierce dedication to justice and truth inspires me daily. I promise to be your biggest supporter, your trusted partner, and your faithful friend until my last breath. Natalie's eyes shone as she responded. Carter, you've taught me that love can be both strong and tender. I promise to face every challenge by your side, to chase our dreams together, and to fill our home with laughter and love. The exchange of rings was accompanied by traditional prayers, and when the minister pronounced each couple married, the chapel erupted in joyous applause. Camera flashes caught the moment each bride was kissed by her groom, capturing images that would appear in newspapers across the country. The reception took place in 2 connecting ballrooms at the prestigious St. Regis Hotel. Soft jazz music floated through both spaces as guests moved freely between them, celebrating with both couples. The decor reflected each pair's personality. Elegant whites and creams for Colton and Nyla, bold corals and golds for Carter and Natalie. During dinner, touching toasts brought both laughter and tears. The couples shared their first dances simultaneously, each in their own ballroom, but to the same song, a symbol of their unified journey. As the evening progressed, they switched partners, with brothers dancing with new sisters-in-law, celebrating their expanded family bonds. The next morning, both couples departed for Charleston, choosing to share their honeymoon destination while maintaining private accommodations. Their first full day began with a sunrise walk along Folly Beach, all 4 of them strolling barefoot in the sand as seabirds wheeled overhead. I can't believe we're actually married, Nyla said, leaning into Colton's embrace as they walked slightly ahead of Carter and Natalie. It feels like a beautiful dream. Colton kissed her temple. The best kind of dream. One that's completely real. Behind them, Carter and Natalie walked hand in hand, occasionally stopping to examine interesting shells. Think about it, Natalie mused. Our kids will be cousins who look like twins themselves. The conversation about future children continued over breakfast at a charming beachfront cafe. Neela spoke of her hope for 3 children, while Natalie admitted she'd always imagined having 2. Their husbands listened with tender attention, both already envisioning nurseries and tiny footsteps in their homes. The days unfolded in a perfect blend of togetherness and private moments. The couples explored historic downtown Charleston, taking carriage rides through the cobblestone streets and sampling local cuisine. They visited the famous Magnolia Plantation, where Colton and Nyla spent hours in the peaceful gardens while Carter and Natalie toured the historic house. Evenings were spent separately, each couple creating their own intimate memories. Colton and Nyla enjoyed quiet dinners on their hotel balcony, talking about their hopes for the future. Carter and Natalie preferred trying different restaurants each night, already planning how they would balance their careers with family life. On their last morning in Charleston, the 4 gathered for a farewell breakfast. This has been perfect, Neela said, looking around at her new family. I couldn't have imagined a better way to start our marriage. The drive back to Atlanta was filled with contentment. The couples had already purchased homes in the same upscale neighborhood, just 3 streets apart. As they pulled into their respective driveways, Each pair felt the excitement of beginning their new life together. Colton carried Nyla across the threshold of their colonial-style home, while blocks away, Carter did the same for Natalie at their modern mansion. That evening, as the Atlanta sunset painted the sky in brilliant colors, both couples settled into their new routines with peaceful hearts. Nyla arranged flowers in their kitchen while Colton unpacked, and Natalie organized her home office while Carter ordered their favorite takeout. In these simple moments, both couples felt the profound rightness of their choices and the promise of the future stretching before them. The first night in their new homes marked the beginning of their shared journey. 4 hearts beating as one family, united in love and faith, ready to face whatever life might bring with strength and grace. The late summer breeze drifted through the open windows of Nyla and Colton's kitchen as she prepared breakfast. 6 weeks had passed since their return from Charleston, and life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. But this morning, the smell of coffee, usually her favorite way to start the day, made her stomach turn. "Are you feeling okay, sweetheart?" Colton asked, noticing how she stepped away from the coffee maker. "Just tired," Nyla replied, pressing a hand to her forehead. "I've been feeling off for a few days now." 3 streets over, Natalie sat in her home office, absently munching on pickles dipped in peanut butter, a combination that would have disgusted her just days ago. Carter watched from the doorway, his eyebrows raised in amused concern. "That's the 3rd jar this week," he commented carefully. "I know it's weird," Natalie admitted, "but I can't help it. It's like my body is demanding it." That evening, during their weekly sister dinner, Neela and Natalie shared their symptoms. Their eyes met across the restaurant table as realization dawned. "You don't think," Neela whispered. "Both of us?" Natalie reached for her sister's hand. "We should make appointments." The next morning, both sisters sat in adjacent examination rooms at their OB/GYN's office. Their husbands, who had rushed from work upon hearing their wives' suspicions, paced the hallway between rooms. Dr. Sarah Martinez moved between the rooms with a growing smile. "Well, ladies," she announced, gathering both couples together, "it seems the Vale family is about to double in size. You're both pregnant." Tears flowed freely as the news sank in. Colton pulled Nyla into a gentle embrace, while Carter lifted Natalie off her feet in excitement. The brothers exchanged looks of pure joy over their wives' heads. "According to the dates," Dr. Martinez continued, "you're both about 6 weeks along. Your due dates are just days apart." That weekend, both families gathered in Evelyn Vale's spacious living room. Sunlight streamed through tall windows as they formed a circle, hands joined in prayer. Evelyn's voice trembled with emotion as she led them in giving thanks. "Dear Heavenly Father," she began, "we gather today to thank you for this miraculous blessing. 2 new lives created in love coming to join our family. Guide these mothers-to-be, protect these precious babies, and help us all to be the support system these children will need." The following months brought a whirlwind of shared experiences. The sisters attended every doctor's appointment together, their growing bellies seeming to match inch for inch. They watched with wonder as their first ultrasound images revealed tiny heartbeats, and later, distinct profiles that already seemed to show family resemblances. "Look at those Vale noses," Natalie joked during their 20-week scans, pointing at the screen. Baby shower planning became a family project, with Evelyn taking the lead. She transformed her backyard into an elegant garden party space with twin archways of balloons, pink for Nyla's girl and blue for Natalie's boy. "My grandbabies are going to be best friends," Evelyn declared as she arranged centerpieces, just like their mothers. As their 7th month approached, the sisters spent countless hours in the nurseries, folding tiny clothes and arranging stuffed animals. Neela's nursery featured soft pastels and woodland creatures, while Natalie opted for bright colors and a modern safari theme. "Can you believe we're going to be mothers?" Neela asked one afternoon, running her hand over her rounded belly. "Sometimes it still feels surreal." Natalie nodded, adjusting a picture frame on the wall. "I know what you mean. But then she kicks, or he moves, and it's the most real thing in the world." The brothers threw themselves into preparations with equal enthusiasm. They assembled cribs, installed car seats, and attended every parenting class available. Carter even started a spreadsheet tracking every possible item they might need, while Colton researched the safest baby products on the market. During their 8th month, both couples attended a special prayer service at their church, where their pastor blessed the upcoming births. The congregation surrounded them with love and support, many members sharing their own parenting wisdom and offering to help once the babies arrived. The evening before their due date window began found both couples in their respective homes, each processing the imminent arrival of their children in their own ways. Nyla sat in her rocking chair, softly singing lullabies to her unborn daughter, while Colton added final touches to the hospital bags. At Carter and Natalie's house, they worked together to double-check their preparation checklist, pausing occasionally for Natalie to rub her back or shift positions. The nursery light cast a warm glow as they stood in the doorway, imagining their son in the carefully prepared room. "We're as ready as we'll ever be," Carter said, wrapping his arms around Natalie from behind, his hands resting on her belly. "The babies will come when they're ready," Natalie replied, leaning back against him. "Though I hope they're as punctual as their fathers." In both homes, the air hummed with anticipation. Birth plans were posted on refrigerators, hospital routes had been test-driven multiple times, and phones were fully charged. Everything was in place for the next chapter of their journey to begin. That night, as Atlanta's lights twinkled beneath a star-filled sky, 4 hearts beat in sync with the 2 tiny ones they'd soon meet. The nurseries stood ready, drawers filled with diapers and onesies, shelves lined with books for bedtime stories. In these quiet moments before sleep, each parent-to-be offered silent prayers of gratitude and hope, dreaming of the little ones who would soon transform their lives forever. The early morning stillness broke with a sharp intake of breath. Neela sat up in bed, her hand instinctively moving to her rounded belly. The digital clock on her nightstand read 4:15 in the morning. "Colton," she whispered, gently shaking her husband's shoulder. "I think it's time." Colton was instantly alert, his eyes wide as he fumbled for the bedside lamp. "Are you sure? Are you having contractions?" Nyla nodded, breathing deeply through another wave of pressure. "They started about an hour ago. I wanted to be certain before waking you." With practiced efficiency, Colton helped Nyla to her feet and grabbed their packed hospital bag. His hands trembled slightly as he dialed Carter's number to let him know they were heading to the hospital. The streets of Atlanta were quiet as they drove, streetlights casting an orange glow on the empty roads. Nyla focused on her breathing exercises while Colton navigated carefully, one hand firmly gripping hers. At the hospital, they were quickly settled into a labor and delivery room. The morning shift nurses moved with quiet efficiency, checking vital signs and hooking up monitors. The steady whoosh-whoosh of their baby's heartbeat filled the room. Just as the sun began to rise, Colton's phone buzzed. It was Carter, his voice excited and slightly panicked. "Natalie's water just broke! We're on our way to the hospital now!" Within an hour, both sisters were in neighboring rooms, their husbands alternating between standing vigil at their wives' bedsides and pacing the hallway together. Evelyn arrived with coffee and prayers, settling into the role of supportive grandmother-to-be with natural grace. 2 babies in one day, she marveled, patting both sons' shoulders. God certainly has a sense of timing. The morning progressed with steady determination. Nyla's labor moved quickly, her soft voice occasionally rising with the intensity of contractions. Next door, Natalie gripped the bed rails and powered through each wave, her naturally bold personality showing even in these moments. At exactly 12:47 in the afternoon, Neela's delivery room filled with the strong, clear cry of a newborn girl. Tears streamed down Colton's face as he cut the cord, and the nurses placed their daughter on Nyla's chest. "Hello, sweet Grace," Nyla whispered, counting tiny fingers and toes through her tears. "We've been waiting for you." Just 2 hours and 13 minutes later, Natalie's son made his entrance into the world, his lusty cries echoing down the hallway. Carter's hands shook as he helped clean their boy's face, his own eyes misty with joy. "Welcome to the world, Marcus," Natalie said softly, cradling their son close. "You're already so loved." The afternoon melted into evening as both families moved between rooms, sharing tears and hugs, taking photos, and marveling at the perfect timing of it all. Grace and Marcus were weighed, measured, and declared healthy by the nursing staff. In Nyla's room, Colton couldn't stop staring at his daughter's dark curls and perfect bow lips. "She looks just like you," he told his wife, perching carefully on the edge of the bed. Next door, Carter watched in awe as Marcus gripped his finger with surprising strength. "He's got your determination," he told Natalie with a grin. As the excitement of the day began to settle, Dr. Sarah Chen, the pediatrician on call, made her rounds. She smiled warmly as she examined each baby, making notes on their charts. "Everything looks wonderful," she assured both families. "I'd like to recommend our routine newborn genetic screening. It's a simple blood test that checks for various health markers. We offer it to all our new parents." "Of course," Nyla agreed without hesitation, exchanging glances with Colton. "Anything to ensure they're healthy." In the next room, Natalie and Carter readily gave their consent as well. The nurses efficiently collected tiny blood samples, soothing the baby's brief cries with gentle touches and soft words. As night fell over Atlanta, peace settled over the hospital rooms. Nyla dozed with Grace nestled against her chest, while Colton kept watch from the recliner beside them. The soft beeping of monitors created a gentle lullaby. In their room, Natalie and Carter had finally convinced Marcus to sleep in his bassinet, both of them watching their son's tiny chest rise and fall with each breath. The city lights twinkled through the windows, casting a gentle glow over the new families. The day's excitement gradually gave way to exhaustion, and soon both couples drifted off to sleep. Grace and Marcus slumbered peacefully in their bassinets, unaware of the profound joy they'd brought to their families or the questions that would soon arise from their routine tests. In these quiet hours, the hospital ward was filled only with the soft sounds of new life and peaceful rest. The genetic screening samples made their way to the lab, ordinary vials containing extraordinary revelations that would change everything. 2 days after the joyful births, sunlight streamed through the hospital room windows as Nyla gently rocked Grace in the bedside chair. Colton had just returned from the cafeteria with fresh coffee when Dr. Chen appeared in the doorway. Something in her expression made Nyla's heart skip a beat. "Mr. and Mrs. Vale," Dr. Chen began, closing the door behind her. She clutched a manila folder, her knuckles white against the paper. "I need to discuss the results of Grace's genetic screening with you." Colton moved to stand beside Nyla's chair, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "Is everything all right? Is Grace healthy?" Dr. Chen pulled up a rolling stool and sat, her face etched with concern. "Grace is perfectly healthy," she assured them quickly. However, the test revealed something unexpected. She paused, choosing her words carefully. The genetic markers indicate that Grace is not biologically related to either of you." The room went completely still. Nyla's arms tightened instinctively around Grace, who slept peacefully, unaware of the bomb that had just been dropped. "That's impossible," Colton said firmly, though his voice wavered. "There must be some mistake." "I had the lab run the test twice to confirm," Dr. Chen replied gently. "I know this is shocking news." Nyla looked down at her daughter's perfect face, tears beginning to blur her vision. "But I carried her. I gave birth to her. How can she not be mine?" Before Dr. Chen could respond, a commotion erupted in the hallway. Carter's voice carried through the door, tight with emotion. "What do you mean he's not mine?" Moments later, the door burst open. Carter and Natalie stood there, their faces pale with shock. Natalie clutched Marcus to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "They're saying Marcus isn't Carter's," Natalie choked out. "But he's mine. The test shows he's mine." Dr. Chen rose quickly. "Please, let's move this conversation somewhere more private. We have a consultation suite where we can all talk." The next hour passed in a blur as both couples were led to a quiet room away from the main ward. Security was posted outside to ensure their privacy, given the Vale family's prominent status. Inside, the couples sat close together, their babies sleeping soundly despite the tension in the room. "We need to have the tests run again," Carter insisted, his normally confident voice rough with emotion. "At a different lab. This can't be right." Dr. Chen nodded. "I've already contacted our backup laboratory. They can process new samples immediately, but it will take another 24 hours for results." Colton, who had been quietly processing everything, spoke up. "And what happens then? If the results are the same? Then we'll need to investigate how this could have happened." Dr. Chen replied carefully. "The hospital will launch a full internal review." Nyla hadn't spoken since the initial shock. Now she looked up, her eyes meeting Natalie's across the room. "None of this changes how we feel about our babies," she said softly but firmly. Natalie nodded, wiping tears from her cheeks. "Never," she agreed, kissing Marcus's forehead. The nurses came to collect new blood samples from both babies. Grace fussed slightly at the needle prick, while Marcus let out a sharp cry. Their parents soothed them with gentle touches and whispered words of love, each touch now carrying an extra weight of meaning. As evening approached, Dr. Chen arranged for both families to be discharged. "Try to rest," she advised, though she knew sleep would be nearly impossible. "We'll call as soon as we have the new results." The drive home felt surreal. In Colton and Nyla's car, silence hung heavy between them. Nyla sat in the back beside Grace's car seat, unable to take her eyes off her daughter. "She's ours," Nyla whispered, more to herself than to Colton. "In every way that matters, she's ours." Colton caught her eye in the rearview mirror, his own gaze swimming with unshed tears. "Always," he promised. Across town, Carter drove with white-knuckled focus, while Natalie sat in the back with Marcus. The city lights blurred past their windows as questions tumbled through their minds. How could this happen? What did it mean? Where did they go from here? Late that night, both couples sat in their respective living rooms, neither able to sleep despite their exhaustion. Nyla curled up on the couch with Grace in her arms, while Colton sat beside them, his hand resting protectively on his daughter's back. In their own home, Carter and Natalie took turns holding Marcus, as if afraid he might disappear if they set him down. The ticking of the clock on the wall seemed to echo in the quiet room, marking time as they waited for answers that might shatter their world even further. The night stretched endlessly before them, filled with unspoken fears and desperate prayers. Grace and Marcus slept peacefully, innocent of the storm brewing around them. Their parents held them close, love warring with uncertainty, as they faced the longest night of their lives. In both homes, the same question hung in the air. How could the happiest day of their lives have turned into this nightmare? As the city slept around them, 4 hearts ached with the weight of unknown answers, while 2 tiny hearts beat steadily on, wrapped in the unconditional love of their parents, biological or not. Morning light crept through the windows, finding 4 exhausted faces. Neither couple had slept more than a few minutes at a time, taking turns holding their babies and wrestling with their fears. The hospital had promised to call with the new test results by 9 o'clock, and every minute until then felt like an eternity. Colton paced their living room while Nyla prepared a bottle for Grace. His phone sat on the coffee table, screen dark and silent. "It's 8:45, he said, checking his watch for the 100th time. In Carter and Natalie's home across town, a similar scene played out. Natalie sat in the nursery's rocking chair, Marcus sleeping against her chest while Carter kept vigil by the phone. At precisely 9:03, both phones rang almost simultaneously. The couples listened with sinking hearts as Dr. Chen delivered the news they'd dreaded. The second set of tests confirmed the original results. "I want to be absolutely clear," Dr. Chen said firmly during a conference call with both families. "We've reviewed every security recording, every staff rotation, every detail of both deliveries. There was no possibility of the babies being switched in our care. The discrepancy must have originated before the births." Natalie's legal training kicked in. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything," Dr. Chen replied carefully. "I'm simply stating what we know with certainty. Our hospital has multiple safeguards in place to prevent mix-ups. These results indicate something more complex than a simple hospital error." After the call ended, the weight of uncertainty pressed even harder on their shoulders. How could they move forward without understanding what had happened? By early afternoon, Nyla felt like she would suffocate if she stayed inside another minute. "I need some air," she told Colton, who sat holding Grace. "Just a quick walk around the hospital grounds." The late winter air bit at her cheeks as she walked the winding paths near the hospital's healing garden. Her mind raced with possibilities, each more unsettling than the last. Lost in thought, she almost bumped into an elderly woman in a worn peacoat. "I'm so sorry." Nyla started to apologize, but something in the woman's expression made her pause. "You're one of the Vale wives, aren't you?" the woman asked quietly. Her grey hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and, though she looked tired, her eyes were sharp with purpose. "I'm Margaret Wheeler. I was a nurse here for 30 years before retiring. I've been watching the news about your situation." Nyla nodded cautiously, uncertain why this stranger seemed so intent on speaking with her. Margaret glanced around before continuing in a lower voice. "There's something you should know. Back in the 1980s and early 90s, there was this adoption agency in town. They had connections everywhere, hospitals, social services, you name it. But they weren't what they seemed." Nyla's heart began to pound. "What do you mean?" "They were corrupt to the core," Margaret continued. "They specialized in covering up scandals involving prominent families. Sometimes that meant arranging quick, quiet adoptions. Other times—" She hesitated. "Other times they did worse things, like swapping infants to hide evidence of affairs or other secrets people wanted buried." The world seemed to tilt under Nyla's feet. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I saw the James name connected to your story," Margaret replied. "And I remember that agency had dealings with the James family years ago. I can't be certain it's the same one, but... She pressed a folded piece of paper into Nyla's hand. This is the agency's name, and the years they operated. Maybe it will help you find answers. Before Nyla could respond, Margaret hurried away, leaving her standing alone with the paper burning in her palm like a live coal. That evening, both couples gathered at Evelyn Vale's house for dinner, though no one had much appetite. As soon as they'd settled in the living room, Nyla shared what she'd learned from Margaret. An adoption agency? Carter frowned. But what would that have to do with our situation? Natalie had gone very still, her face draining of color. I found something once, she whispered. In Mom's old papers. I was helping her clean out the attic a few years ago, and there was this envelope. Everyone leaned forward as she continued. Inside was what looked like adoption paperwork, but it was sealed. Mom got really upset when she saw me with it. Said it was just old legal work from a case she'd helped with. I didn't think anything of it at the time, but now... We need to talk to your mother, Colton said firmly. And we need to start a formal investigation. First thing tomorrow morning, we'll contact every authority necessary to get to the bottom of this. Nyla looked down at Grace, sleeping peacefully in her arms. Across the room, Marcus made a small sound in his sleep, and Natalie automatically reached to soothe him. Whatever we find out, Evelyn spoke up, her voice gentle but strong. Those babies are yours. Love makes a family, not just blood. They all nodded, but the questions hung heavy in the air. What secrets lay buried in the past? What would the truth cost them? And how many other families might be affected by whatever they uncovered? The evening wound down, with plans to meet early the next morning. They would begin the process of unraveling a mystery that seemed to stretch back decades, touching lives far beyond their own. As they prepared to leave, Natalie pulled out her phone and made a note of the adoption agency's name from the paper Margaret had given Nyla. Tomorrow they would start digging, but tonight they could only hold their babies close and pray for strength to face whatever lay ahead. The drive home was quiet, each person lost in their own thoughts. The city lights blurred past their windows, and somewhere in the darkness, old secrets stirred, waiting to be brought into the light. The morning sun had barely risen when both families gathered in Marcus Thane's downtown genealogy office. The experienced genealogist welcomed them into a warm space filled with old maps and family trees decorating the walls. Detective Lorna Briggs, recently retired from the Atlanta Police Department, stood near his desk, her sharp eyes taking in every detail of the group. I understand we're investigating possible adoption irregularities from the 1980s. Marcus began, gesturing for everyone to sit in the comfortable chairs arranged in a circle. Detective Briggs has extensive experience with cases involving that particular agency. Lorna nodded, her silver hair catching the early light. I spent years trying to expose their practices, but they were careful. Very careful. She pulled out a worn notebook. We'll need to gather every document you can find. Birth certificates, hospital records, childhood medical files, anything that might show inconsistencies. Natalie reached for Carter's hand. Our mother keeps everything. She's always been organized about paperwork, but now I wonder if there was another reason. We'll start there, Marcus said, opening his laptop. And I'll begin mapping the DNA connections we already know about. Sometimes genetic evidence tells a story that paperwork tried to hide. Over the next 3 days, they worked tirelessly. Angela James, though visibly nervous, provided access to old filing cabinets full of childhood records. Each document they uncovered seemed to raise more questions than answers. Look at this, Detective Briggs said on the second afternoon, spreading papers across Marcus's desk. The hospital footprints from your birth records don't match the ones in your baby books. And these birth certificates? She pointed to subtle differences in the paper quality. They've been altered. Nyla sat holding baby Grace, her heart aching. But why? Why would anyone do this? Money, usually. Lorna replied grimly. Or covering up scandals for wealthy clients. We may never know the full story without finding someone from the agency willing to talk. On Wednesday morning, Marcus called them all together. The DNA results from their comprehensive testing had arrived. The room felt charged with tension as he pulled up the data on his computer screen. What we're seeing here is remarkable, he said quietly. Nyla, you share DNA markers with Marcus, Natalie and Carter's son. And Natalie, you're biologically connected to Grace, Colton and Nyla's daughter. The revelation settled over them like a soft blanket. Carter moved first, walking over to where Nyla sat with Grace. May I? He asked softly. Nyla nodded, carefully passing him the baby girl. As Carter cradled Grace, tears slipped down his cheeks. She's beautiful, he whispered, just like her biological aunt. Colton went to Natalie, who was holding Marcus. He has your smile, he said, touching the baby's tiny hand. And now we know why. The room filled with gentle movement as they all drew closer together, forming a circle around both babies. There were tears, yes, but also something else. Understanding, acceptance, and most of all, love. Biology is just science, Evelyn said, her voice strong and clear. But what you've all built together, that's family, that's love. These babies belong to all of you, in every way that matters. They spent the afternoon sharing stories, looking at baby pictures, and marveling at features they now recognized in each other. Every few minutes, someone would reach out to touch a tiny hand or smooth a baby's hair, as if reassuring themselves that the infants were real and present. That evening, they gathered for dinner at the Vale Mansion. The long dining table was set with Evelyn's best china, and the warm aroma of comfort food filled the air. As they passed dishes and poured drinks, the conversation flowed naturally between them, punctuated by the soft sounds of two sleeping babies in nearby bassinets. We're getting closer, Detective Briggs said, accepting a bowl of mashed potatoes. The evidence is mounting, and sooner or later someone who knows the truth will come forward. Marcus nodded, spreading butter on a warm roll. The DNA doesn't lie. Whatever happened in the past, we now have proof of the biological connections. That's a powerful starting point for uncovering the rest of the story. I think I'm ready to talk to Mom about what she knows, Natalie said, glancing at Nyla. She's been acting strange ever since the babies were born. I think she's carrying a heavy burden. We'll do it together, Nyla assured her, reaching across the table to squeeze her sister's hand. Whatever we learn, we'll face it as a family. The evening continued with shared memories and quiet laughter, the weight of their discoveries balanced by the strength of their bonds. Both babies slept peacefully, unaware of the complexities surrounding their births, knowing only that they were deeply loved. As dishes were cleared and coffee was served, Detective Briggs pulled out her notebook one more time. Tomorrow, we'll start tracking down former employees of the adoption agency. Someone must know what really happened all those years ago. They all nodded, feeling hopeful yet cautious about what they might uncover. But looking around the table at the faces of their unique, beautiful family, they knew that no revelation could break the bonds they'd formed. Grace stirred in her bassinet, and both Nyla and Natalie moved to check on her. They shared a smile as they tucked the blanket more securely around the sleeping infant. Across the room, Carter and Colton stood together over Marcus's bassinet, their protective stances identical despite their different connections to the child. The evening wound down with quiet conversations and gentle hugs. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and possibly difficult truths, But tonight they could rest in the knowledge that love had already won the most important battle, the one for their hearts. The morning sun had barely touched the Atlanta skyline when Marcus Thane's call came through. Natalie answered on the first ring, putting him on speaker so Carter could hear too. The genealogist's usually steady voice trembled slightly. "I need all of you to come to my office right away," he said. "The final DNA analysis is complete, and there's something you all need to see." Within an hour, both couples gathered in Marcus's downtown office. The walls were lined with family trees and historical documents, but today they seemed more like witnesses to a gathering storm. Naylor sat close to Colton, while Natalie perched on the edge of her chair, Carter's hand resting supportively on her shoulder. Marcus cleared his throat, his fingers hovering over his keyboard. "What I'm about to share will be difficult to hear," he began. The extended genetic testing revealed something unexpected. "Natalie," he paused, looking directly at her. "You and Nyla are not biological twins. In fact, you're not biologically related at all." The room went silent. Nyla's hand flew to her mouth, while Natalie sat perfectly still, as if frozen in place. Carter's grip on her shoulder tightened. "That's impossible," Nyla whispered. "We grew up together. We have the same birthday, the same parents." Marcus pulled up several documents on his screen. "I spent all night cross-referencing databases and historical records. What I found is troubling." He turned his monitor so they could all see. There was a high-profile kidnapping case in 1987. A prominent judge's infant daughter disappeared from Atlanta Memorial Hospital. The case was never solved. Natalie's voice came out barely above a whisper. "What are you saying?" "The DNA markers match, Natalie. You are that missing child. The corrupt adoption agency didn't just handle unethical adoptions, they were involved in covering up kidnappings. They placed you with the James family using falsified documents." The revelation hit like a physical blow. Natalie stood abruptly, backing away from everyone. "No," she said, shaking her head. "No, this isn't. I can't." Carter reached for her, but she flinched away. "Natalie, honey, let's take a breath." "A breath?" Her laugh was hollow. "My entire life is a lie. Everything I thought I knew about myself." She turned to Nyla, who was quietly crying. "We're not even sisters." "That doesn't matter," Nyla said desperately. "We're family no matter what DNA says, but it does matter." Natalie's voice cracked. "Don't you see? Everything about my life has been built on lies. The family I thought I had, the childhood memories I cherished, none of it was real." The rest of the day passed in a blur of painful revelations. Marcus continued his research, uncovering more details about Natalie's biological family. Her father, the judge, had passed away 5 years ago, never knowing what happened to his daughter. Her mother still lived in Virginia, having never given up hope of finding her child. By evening, Natalie had barely spoken a word. She sat in the corner of their living room, staring out the window while Carter tried desperately to reach her. "We'll get through this together," he pleaded. "Nothing has to change between us." She turned to look at him, her eyes distant. "Everything has already changed, Carter. I'm not who I thought I was. I'm not who you married. I don't even know who I am anymore." After Carter finally fell into an exhausted sleep that night, Natalie moved silently through their home. She packed a small bag with essentials, clothes, toiletries, her laptop. In the nursery, she stood over Marcus's crib, tears falling as she watched him sleep. "I love you so much," she whispered. "But right now I don't know how to be anyone's mother when I don't even know who I am." She left a note on the kitchen counter, her hands shaking as she wrote, "Carter, I need time to figure out who I really am. Please don't try to find me. Take care of our son. I'm sorry." The sun was just beginning to rise when Carter found the note. He read it once, twice, 3 times, his world crumbling with each word. Their son began crying in the nursery, and Carter moved automatically to comfort him, clutching the paper in his trembling hand. Standing in the nursery, holding their baby boy, Carter felt the full weight of what was happening. His marriage was falling apart. His wife was gone. And though he held his son in his arms, the shadow of the DNA results loomed over even this most precious relationship. He sank into the rocking chair, pulling Marcus close to his chest, and let his tears fall freely. Outside, the sunrise painted the sky in brilliant colors, but inside, his world had never felt darker. Carter's hands shook as he gripped his steering wheel, the morning sun barely cresting over Atlanta's skyline. His son's car seat was securely fastened in the back, little Marcus still drowsy from being rushed out of the house. The crumpled note from Natalie lay on the passenger seat, its few devastating words burning in his mind. He pulled into Colton and Nyla's driveway with tires screeching, grabbing Marcus's carrier with one hand and the note with the other. His knuckles had barely touched their front, when Colton yanked it open, clearly having heard the car's arrival. "She's gone," Carter choked out, thrusting the note toward his brother. "Natalie left sometime during the night." Colton's face paled as he read the short message. Behind him, Nyla appeared in the hallway, their baby daughter Emma cradled against her shoulder. "What's wrong?" Nyla asked, but then she saw Carter's red-rimmed eyes and the way his shoulders slumped. "No, Natalie." Carter nodded, following them into the living room. "I woke up and found the note. She just left. Everything else is still there, her clothes, her wedding ring. She only took enough for a few days." Nyla handed Emma to Colton and sank onto the couch, her hands trembling. "This is all falling apart," she whispered. "First we find out we're not really twins, and now—" Her voice broke, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I'm losing her completely." Colton settled Emma in her playpen next to Marcus and pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the police." "No," Carter said quickly. "She's an adult who left voluntarily. They won't do anything. Besides—" He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "The last thing Natalie needs right now is more pressure." "Then what do we do?" Nyla asked, her voice small and frightened. They spent the next several hours making calls. Carter contacted Natalie's law office, but she had already emailed in for emergency personal leave. Nyla reached out to their old church friends, their college roommates, even their favorite coffee shop owners. No one had seen her. By afternoon, they had compiled a list of places to check in person. Colton stayed home with the babies while Carter and Nyla drove around Atlanta, visiting every spot that held meaning for Natalie. The park where she used to study for the bar exam, the community center where she volunteered, the library where she and Carter had their first real conversation. As the sun began to set, they sat in Carter's car outside the courthouse where Natalie worked, exhaustion and worry etched on their faces. "She has to be somewhere," Nyla said, staring at her phone. She had sent dozens of messages throughout the day, each more pleading than the last. She wouldn't just vanish completely. Carter gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. "I should have seen this coming. She was so quiet after Marcus revealed everything yesterday. I should have stayed awake, should have talked to her more. This isn't your fault," Nyla assured him, touching his arm. "Natalie just found out her entire life story was built on lies. That's huge. Maybe she really does need space to process it." Just then, Nyla's phone buzzed. Her hands shook as she read the message aloud. "I'm safe. I need time to think. We'll meet you tomorrow morning at 7 at Lake Clara, our old spot. Just you, Nyla, please." Relief flooded through them both. Carter wanted to argue about being excluded from the meeting, but he understood. If anyone could reach Natalie right now, it would be the woman who had been her sister for 32 years, DNAs or not. The next morning dawned cool and misty over Lake Clara. Neela arrived early, her heart pounding as she walked toward the wooden bench, where she and Natalie had shared so many sister moments over the years, celebrating victories, crying over breakups, planning their double wedding. She spotted Natalie from a distance, her sister's familiar figure hunched over on their bench. As Nyla drew closer, she could see Natalie's shoulders trembling. Whether from the morning chill or from emotion, she couldn't tell. "Nat," she called softly. Natalie's head snapped up, her face tear-stained and tired. She looked like she hadn't slept at all. "I didn't know if you'd come alone." "Of course I did." Nyla sat beside her, close but not touching, respecting the space Natalie seemed to need. "We've been so worried." "I'm sorry for disappearing," Natalie whispered, staring out at the lake's still surface. I couldn't breathe. Everything I thought I knew about myself." Her voice cracked. "Who am I, Nyla? If I'm not your twin, if I'm not even a James, then who am I?" Nyla's heart broke at the raw pain in her sister's voice. She turned to face Natalie fully. "You're the same person you've always been. You're the girl who stood up to bullies in middle school. You're the woman who fought her way through law school while working 2 jobs. You're a wife, a mother, an advocate for justice." But it was all based on lies. Natalie protested, fresh tears spilling. "Our whole childhood, our parents knew I wasn't really theirs. They just kept me from my real family." "They loved you," Nyla said firmly. "What happened was wrong, deeply wrong. But the love was real. Every bedtime story, every Christmas morning, every proud smile at your graduations, that was real." Natalie's shoulders shook with silent sobs. Nyla couldn't hold back anymore. She wrapped her arms around her sister, and this time Natalie didn't pull away. Instead, she collapsed into the embrace, crying into Nyla's shoulder like they had done countless times before. "Listen to me," Nyla said fiercely. "DNA doesn't make a sister. 32 years of shared lives, shared dreams, shared hearts. That's what makes a sister. You're mine, Natalie James. Nothing can change that." They sat there holding each other as the morning mist began to lift, the lake's surface starting to sparkle in the strengthening sunlight. Finally, Natalie pulled back slightly, wiping her eyes. "I left Carter," she whispered. "And Marcus, I just ran." "They understand," Nyla assured her. "But they miss you. We all do. Come home, Nat. Not because everything's fixed, it isn't. But because you don't have to figure this out alone." Natalie was quiet for a long moment, watching a pair of ducks glide across the lake's surface. "I can't just go back like nothing's changed," she said slowly. I need to understand who I am now, who I've always been." Nyla nodded. "Then let's figure it out together. Stay with Colton and me for a few days. Take the time you need. But please don't disappear again." Natalie looked at her sister, because that's what they would always be, regardless of biology, and gave a small, shaky nod. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." The morning sun streamed through the kitchen windows of Colton and Nayla's home as the family gathered for breakfast. Natalie sat quietly at the marble counter, pushing scrambled eggs around her plate, while Carter watched her with worried eyes from across the table. She had barely touched her food when Marcus Thane's name flashed on her phone screen. Her hand trembled as she answered. "Hello? Mrs. Vale." Marcus's calm voice came through. "I have some news that you might want to sit down for." Natalie's fork clattered against her plate. Everyone in the kitchen froze, watching her face intently. "I've located your biological family," Marcus continued gently. "They're alive, living in Maryland. And Mrs. Vale, they never stopped looking for you." The room spun slightly as Natalie gripped the counter edge. Naylor was at her side instantly, one hand on her back. "What?" Natalie whispered. "Your biological mother, Eleanor Mitchell, reported you missing from Georgetown University Hospital 32 years ago. The case was never solved. They've maintained a missing persons report all these years, submitted DNA to every database. That's how I was able to make the match." Tears spilled down Natalie's cheeks as Carter moved to her other side, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. They wanted me?" she managed to say. "Very much so." Marcus replied softly. "They've asked to meet you whenever you feel ready. No pressure, of course. They understand this is overwhelming." After ending the call, Natalie sat in stunned silence while the others gathered close. Her whole body shook with emotion she couldn't name. Relief, fear, hope, grief, all tangled together. "What do you want to do?" Carter asked gently, his hand warm on her back. "I don't know," she whispered. "I don't know anything anymore." Over the next 3 days, the families created a cocoon of love and support around Natalie. Evelyn Vale organized a prayer circle in her garden, where 20 friends gathered to lift up prayers for wisdom and healing. Natalie sat in the center, surrounded by flickering candles, as voices of faith and hope rose around her. Angela James finally broke her decades of silence, sitting with Natalie for hours in the Vale's sunroom. "I was young, desperate," she explained through tears. "The adoption agency, they threatened to take both you and Neela if we didn't cooperate with their scheme. I thought I was protecting you both. I was wrong, so wrong. But Natalie, not one day of loving you was a lie." Natalie held her adoptive mother as they both cried, years of secrets washing away in their tears. Carter proved his love through patient presence, bringing her favorite tea each morning, holding her through nightmares, never pushing for decisions. "Whatever you choose," he would whisper, "I'm here. We're all here." On the 4th morning, Natalie woke early and went to sit in the Vale's garden. The rising sun painted the sky in soft pinks and golds as she closed her eyes in prayer. When Neela found her there an hour later, something had settled in Natalie's spirit. "I want to meet them," she said quietly. "I need to know where I came from, who I was meant to be." Nyla squeezed her hand. "You were meant to be exactly who you are. My sister, Carter's wife, Marcus's mother, a force for justice in this world. Meeting your birth family won't change that. It will just add more love to your life." The arrangements were made through Marcus. The Mitchell family would come to Atlanta, meeting Natalie in neutral territory, the elegant lobby of the Westshire Hotel. As Natalie dressed that morning, her hands shook so badly that Nyla had to help her with her earrings. "What if they don't like who I've become?" she whispered. "Impossible," Nyla assured her. "You're amazing, and they've been loving you from afar for 32 years. Carter drove her to the hotel, holding her hand the whole way. In the parking lot, he turned to her with eyes full of love. "Want me to come in with you?" She shook her head. "I need to do this part alone, but wait for me?" "Always," he promised, kissing her softly. The Westshire's lobby was all marble and crystal, sunlight streaming through tall windows. Natalie's heels clicked against the floor as she stepped inside, her heart pounding so hard she could barely breathe. And then she saw them, a group of people standing near the fountain, led by a woman with familiar eyes and silver-streaked dark hair. Time seemed to stop as mother and daughter stared at each other across the lobby. Then they were both moving, running, crying out wordlessly as they crashed together in an embrace 32 years overdue. Natalie breathed in her biological mother's scent, something hauntingly familiar, as they clung to each other, both sobbing. "My baby," Eleanor Mitchell whispered. "My precious baby, I never stopped looking for you, never stopped loving you, never stopped hoping." They sank to their knees right there in the lobby, holding each other as 3 decades of separation dissolved in their tears. Eleanor Mitchell helped Natalie to her feet, tears still streaming down both their faces. A tall man with kind eyes stepped forward, Natalie's biological father, James Mitchell. "Welcome home, sweetheart," he said softly, enfolding both women in his arms. The hotel staff discreetly guided them to a private meeting room where Natalie met her biological siblings, 2 brothers and a sister who had grown up knowing about their missing sister. They settled into comfortable chairs, boxes of tissues close at hand. "We never gave up," Eleanor explained, holding Natalie's hand tight. "Even when the police said it was hopeless, even when years turned into decades, we knew you were out there somewhere." James Mitchell cleared his throat, emotion making his voice rough. "You were just 6 weeks old. We'd taken you to a routine checkup at Atlanta Memorial. While your mother was filling out paperwork, someone in scrubs told me there was an issue with our insurance. I stepped away for 2 minutes." He pressed his hands together to stop their shaking. "When we got back to the examination room, you were gone. The adoption agency, they were part of a bigger criminal network." Eleanor continued. "They would steal babies, falsify papers, and place them with families who had no idea of the truth. We later learned they targeted politically connected families like ours, thinking we'd be too afraid of scandal to push too hard." Natalie listened, her heart aching for the pain in their voices. "But you did push. You kept searching." "Every single day." Her biological sister Sarah said, "We had age progression photos made. Mom and Dad hired private investigators. We never stopped praying." Through her tears, Natalie shared her own story, growing up loved by Angela and Robert James, becoming a civil rights attorney, falling in love with Carter. When she explained about the DNA test results after her son's birth, her biological mother reached for her again. "Oh, sweetheart, what a shock that must have been. Are you okay?" The simple question, asked with such maternal concern, made fresh tears spill down Natalie's cheeks. "I'm getting there. It's been hard. I felt so lost, like I didn't belong anywhere anymore." "You belong in many places," James Mitchell said gently. "With the family that raised you, with the family you've made with Carter, and yes, with us too. Love multiplies. It doesn't divide." They spent hours sharing photos, stories, and catching up on 32 years of separation. Her biological family showed her pictures of the nursery they'd kept ready for years, hoping she'd come home. They told her about the birthday candles they lit each year, the Christmas stockings they hung with her name, the prayers they never stopped praying. "We don't want to disrupt your life," Eleanor assured her. "We just want to know you, love you, be part of your story in whatever way feels right to you." As afternoon faded into evening, Natalie felt overwhelmed but deeply grateful. She had expected demands or resentment, but found only love and understanding instead. "I should get home," she said finally. "Carter's waiting." "Of course." Eleanor smiled, though Natalie could see how hard it was for her mother to let her go. Would it be okay if we met again soon?" "I'd like that," Natalie replied honestly. "Maybe next time you could meet Carter and Marcus." The joy on their faces warmed her heart. They exchanged phone numbers and hugged goodbye, no one wanting to be the first to let go. The drive home gave Natalie time to process the day's emotions. When she walked into the house, she found Carter sitting in the living room, clearly having waited there since dropping her off. His eyes were red-rimmed, and the coffee table was littered with empty cups. "Carter," she breathed, and then they were moving toward each other. "I'm so sorry I left," she cried against his chest. "I was scared and confused, but running away wasn't the answer. Can you forgive me?" Carter held her tighter, his voice thick with emotion. "There's nothing to forgive. I understand why you needed space. I missed you so much. Please don't ever doubt that I want you, need you, love you. DNA doesn't change any of that." Natalie pulled back just enough to look into his eyes. "They want to be part of our lives, not take over, just be family. Is that okay?" "Of course it is." Carter smiled, wiping tears from her cheeks. "The more people who love you and Marcus, the better." They sank onto the couch together, holding each other close as Natalie described meeting her biological family. Carter listened intently, asking questions and offering support. When she finished, they sat in comfortable silence, their fingers intertwined. "I don't know what happens next," Natalie admitted quietly. "We'll figure it out together." Carter promised, day by day, with love and patience. Natalie nestled closer, feeling truly at peace for the first time since the DNA results had shattered their world. The road ahead might not be easy, but she was no longer lost. She belonged to Carter, to both her families, to herself. That was enough. Dawn painted the North Georgia mountains in soft golden light as two cars wound their way up the narrow road to Peaceful Valley Faith Retreat Center. Pine trees stretched toward the morning sky, their branches swaying gently in the crisp autumn breeze. The peaceful setting seemed perfect for healing hearts and rebuilding bonds. Colton drove the lead car with Nyla beside him, their baby daughter sleeping soundly in her car seat. Through the rearview mirror, he could see Carter's vehicle following, carrying Natalie and their son. The weight of recent revelations hung heavy, but hope flickered like the early morning sunlight through the trees. The retreat center emerged around a bend, a beautiful lodge built of weathered stone and warm wood, surrounded by carefully tended gardens. A sign reading, "Welcome Vale and James Families," stood near the entrance, and Pastor Michael Warren, the center's director, waited on the wide front porch with a gentle smile. "Welcome, everyone." He greeted them warmly as they gathered their bags and babies. "God's peace be with you all during your time here." Inside, the great room's stone fireplace crackled with welcome warmth. Comfortable sofas and chairs were arranged in a circle, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of the misty mountains beyond. The space felt both grand and intimate, perfect for the deep work of restoration ahead. After settling the babies in the adjacent nursery with the center's certified caregivers, the two couples joined Pastor Michael in the circle. Morning light streamed through the windows as he opened their first session with a prayer for guidance and healing. "Let's begin by acknowledging that every person in this room is experiencing profound pain," Pastor Michael said gently. "There's no hierarchy of hurt here. All your feelings are valid." Natalie spoke first, her voice quiet but steady. "I feel like I'm grieving and celebrating at the same time. I've gained a biological family I never knew I had, but I'm also mourning the loss of what I thought was true about myself for 32 years. Nyla reached across the circle to squeeze her sister's hand. "You haven't lost me," she said firmly. "DNA can't erase 32 years of shared memories, shared dreams, shared love." Tears spilled down Natalie's cheeks as she squeezed back. "I know, but sometimes I wake up and for a moment, I forget everything's changed. Then it hits me all over again." Carter moved closer to his wife, his arm steady around her shoulders. "Nothing that matters has changed," he said softly. "You're still the amazing woman I fell in love with. You're still Marcus's mother. You're still Nyla's sister in all the ways that count." Pastor Michael nodded encouragingly. "Carter, how are you processing all of this?" Carter took a deep breath. "Honestly, I've been afraid. When Natalie left that morning, I was terrified she wouldn't come back. That somehow this DNA revelation would make her question everything, our marriage, our family, our love. And now, Pastor Michael prompted. "Now I know better," Carter said, looking at his wife with deep tenderness. "Love isn't about biology. It's about choice. Every day I choose Natalie. I choose our son. I choose our family exactly as it is." The morning session continued with each person sharing their fears, pain, and hopes. When Colton's turn came, his voice shook with emotion. "I've struggled with feeling like I failed somehow," he admitted. "Like I should have protected Nyla from this pain. But I realize now that my job isn't to prevent hurt. It's to walk through it with her, to love her through it." Nyla touched his face gently. "You haven't failed at all. Your love has been my anchor through all of this." They broke for lunch, enjoying a peaceful meal on the center's wraparound porch. The autumn air was crisp and clean, carrying the scent of pine and wood smoke. The babies cooed and giggled in their parents' arms, untouched by the complex emotions swirling around them. The afternoon brought a powerful prayer circle led by Pastor Michael's wife, Sarah. They joined hands in the center's small chapel, sunlight streaming through stained glass windows as they lifted their hearts in prayer. "Lord," Sarah prayed, "we ask for your healing presence in these families. Help them see that your love transcends blood and DNA. Show them that true family is built on choice, commitment, and unconditional love." That evening, after a shared dinner, they gathered in the great room again. The mountain sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks as they discussed practical steps forward. "I want to meet Natalie's biological family," Nyla said suddenly. "If that's okay with everyone, they're part of our story now too." Natalie's eyes filled with tears. "Really? You'd want that?" "Of course." Nyla smiled. "They're another branch of our family tree now. The more love surrounding our children, the better." The next morning dawned clear and bright. Pastor Michael led them in a session focused on identity and belonging. They wrote letters to themselves and each other, sharing their deepest fears and strongest hopes. Identity isn't just about where we came from, Pastor Michael reminded them. It's about who we choose to be, who we love, how we live our values. During the afternoon, they participated in a powerful trust exercise. Standing in pairs, they took turns falling backward, trusting their partner to catch them. The simple act brought both laughter and tears as they physically demonstrated their commitment to supporting each other. As the sun began to set on their second day, Colton stood and faced Nyla. Taking her hands in his, he spoke from his heart. "You are the love of my life," he declared. "No paper, no test, no document can change that. Every day I fall more in love with your gentle spirit, your huge heart, your amazing strength." Carter followed suit, turning to Natalie with eyes full of love. "Our home isn't built on DNA," he said softly. "It's built on every moment we've shared, every challenge we've faced together, every dream we're still chasing. That's what makes us family." Pastor Michael smiled warmly. "I hear in your words a desire to reaffirm your commitments to each other. Would you like to renew your vows?" The couples looked at each other, then nodded simultaneously. "Yes," Natalie said firmly. "A ceremony to celebrate who we are now, stronger, wiser, more deeply committed than ever." They spent the evening planning a simple but meaningful vow renewal ceremony for the following month. As darkness fell over the mountains, peace settled over the families like a warm blanket. They had faced their fears, shared their pain, and emerged stronger together. The babies slept peacefully in their carriers as the adults sat around the fireplace one last time, hands joined in prayer. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as one family, bound together by something far stronger than DNA, the power of chosen, committed, unconditional love. The afternoon sun streamed through the retreat chapel's stained glass windows, casting jewel-toned light across the intimate gathering. Fresh flowers lined the simple wooden pews, their sweet fragrance mingling with the mountain air that drifted through open doors. Both families sat close together, their faces glowing with anticipation and joy. Pastor Michael stood at the altar, his weathered Bible open in his hands. "Love," he began, his voice warm and steady, "is not a feeling that happens to us. It's a choice we make every day. These couples before us have learned this truth in profound ways." The babies cooed softly from their carriers, held lovingly by their grandparents in the front row. Their peaceful presence reminded everyone of the pure innocence that had brought them all to this moment of renewal. Colton and Nyla stepped forward first. They faced each other, hands clasped, eyes brimming with emotion. Colton's voice was thick with feeling as he began his vows. "Nyla, these past months have taught me what true love really means. It's not about perfect circumstances or easy paths. It's about choosing each other every single day, through every storm and every celebration. You've shown me what grace looks like in human form. Your strength amazes me. Your heart inspires me. I promise to keep choosing you, supporting you, and loving you more deeply with each passing day." Tears rolled down Nyla's cheeks as she responded. "Colton, you've been my rock when everything else felt uncertain. Your love never wavered, not for a second. You showed me that family isn't about DNA. It's about the bonds we build through faith, trust, and unconditional love. I promise to keep building this beautiful life with you, to face whatever comes our way together, and to thank God every day for bringing you into my life." Carter and Natalie stepped forward next. The past weeks had left visible marks on both of them, shadows under their eyes, tension in their shoulders, but their love shone through even stronger for having been tested. Carter took a deep breath before speaking. "Natalie, when you left that morning, my world stopped turning. But even in that darkness, I never stopped loving you. I understand now that your journey of identity is part of our journey together. I promise to stand beside you as you embrace all parts of who you are. I promise to love our son with my whole heart, knowing that love makes us family more than anything else ever could. I choose you, I choose us, I choose this perfectly imperfect family we're building together." Natalie's voice quivered as she responded. "Carter, your forgiveness and patience have taught me what unconditional love truly means. When I felt lost between two worlds, your love remained my home. I promise to stop running from hard truths. I promise to trust in the family we've built together. I promise to keep choosing you every single day as my partner, my best friend, and the father of our child." Pastor Michael smiled warmly. "By the power vested in me, I now reaffirm these holy unions. May your love continue to grow stronger through every season of life." The small congregation erupted in applause and happy tears as both couples sealed their renewed vows with tender kisses. The babies chose that moment to let out delighted squeals, making everyone laugh. The celebration moved to the retreat center's dining hall, transformed for the evening with twinkling lights and more fresh flowers. The babies' bassinets were placed side by side near the head table, where they entertained everyone with their synchronized giggles and reaching hands. During dinner, stories flowed as freely as the sparkling cider. Neela's mother shared memories of the sisters growing up, emphasizing how love had always been the foundation of their family. Natalie's biological mother spoke about the joy of finding her daughter and gaining an entire extended family in the process. The Vale twins' mother talked about watching her sons grow into the kind of men who could face life's challenges with grace and strength. As evening deepened into night, the group moved outside to gather around the large stone fire pit. Stars twinkled overhead as flames danced and crackled, creating a cozy circle of warmth and light. The babies had fallen asleep in their father's arms, peaceful expressions on their tiny faces. "Remember when we first met at that charity banquet?" Carter asked, gently rocking his son. "Who could have guessed where that evening would lead us?" Natalie leaned against his shoulder. "I wouldn't change it, you know. Not any of it. Even the hard parts brought us here, made us stronger. That's what family does." Nyla added softly. "It grows stronger through challenges, not in spite of them." Colton nodded, looking around the circle at the faces illuminated by firelight. "We're all connected now in ways that go deeper than blood or DNA. We're connected by choice, by love, by faith." Stories continued to flow as the fire burned bright. They shared memories of their first dates, their original wedding day, the joy of learning about the pregnancies. But now these stories carried new meaning, highlighted by the journey they'd traveled together. The babies stirred occasionally, making soft sleeping sounds that punctuated the quiet conversations. Looking at them, peaceful and innocent, everyone could see the promise of the future, a future where the pain of the past had been transformed into wisdom, where bonds of love had been tested and proven unbreakable. As midnight approached, the fire burned low, casting a gentle glow over the gathered family. The mountain air had grown cool, but hearts were warm with love and gratitude. In this moment, surrounded by those who had chosen to love each other through everything, they all felt the truth of what they'd learned, that real family transcends biology, that love is stronger than fear, and that faith can guide the way through life's darkest valleys into its brightest peaks. The stars continued to shine overhead, witnesses to the peace that had finally settled over both couples and their extended family. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joys, new opportunities to choose love. But tonight, in this sacred circle of firelight and family, everything was exactly as it should be. The crisp Atlanta morning buzzed with anticipation as reporters gathered outside Vail Technologies' headquarters. Inside the gleaming glass building, Colton and Carter Vail stood before a podium, their wives and children seated proudly in the front row. "Today, we're announcing the launch of the Vail Family Foundation for Adoption, Truth, and Reunification." Colton began, his voice steady and clear. "With an initial commitment of $50 million, we'll work to expose corruption in adoption systems and help reconnect families torn apart by deceptive practices." Carter stepped forward, placing a hand on his brother's shoulder. "Our personal journey taught us that truth, no matter how difficult, can lead to healing. Every child deserves to know their story. Every family deserves answers." The Foundation's first initiative would create a database using advanced DNA matching and artificial intelligence to help identify patterns of adoption fraud. They also announced plans for a legal aid fund, inspired by Natalie's work as a civil rights attorney, to support families seeking answers about their histories. As weeks turned into months, Neela returned to her role as a children's counselor, now with deeper insight into the complexities of family bonds. She and Natalie grew closer than ever, their shared experiences strengthening their sisterhood beyond any biological connection. Natalie threw herself back into her legal practice, taking on cases specifically focused on adoption rights and family reunification. Her unique perspective, as both an attorney and someone who had lived through adoption fraud, made her a powerful advocate for change. The summer passed in a blur of milestones. First teeth, first words, first wobbly steps. Both babies grew stronger each day, surrounded by the unconditional love of their extended family. Natalie's biological parents became beloved grandparents, while maintaining respect for the James family who had raised her. When October arrived, bringing with it the baby's first birthday, both families gathered at the Vale estate for a celebration filled with laughter and gratitude. Colourful balloons danced in the autumn breeze as the little ones toddled through the garden, cousins in every way that mattered. The afternoon sun cast a golden glow over the party as everyone gathered for cake and presents. Both children wore matching "I am loved" t-shirts, a gentle reminder of the truth that had carried their families through the storms of the past year. As evening approached, Colton stood to give a toast, his eyes bright with emotion. "1 year ago we thought truth might break us," he began, looking at the faces of those gathered around the table. "We discovered that DNA doesn't define family. Love does, faith does, choice does." He paused, watching as Nyla wiped away happy tears. "When we learned about the adoption, fraud, we could have let it tear us apart. Instead, it brought us a deeper kind of family, one built on honesty, understanding, and unshakable love." Raising his glass, Colton's voice filled with warmth. "Today we celebrate not just our children's first year of life, but the truth that led us all home to each other. When love meets truth, hearts always find their way home." The gathered family members raised their glasses in agreement, the setting sun painting the sky in shades of hope. Around the table sat the living proof that family transcends biology. Two couples who had faced their deepest fears and emerged stronger. Two babies who would grow up knowing they were cherished, and an extended family bound together by choice, faith, and unconditional love. Thank you for being here. If something in this story stayed with you, I'd love to see you again. Subscribe, and tomorrow I'll bring you another story crafted with heart.